This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
Hi friends, I'm Carrie Jo, and this is Holy Chuckles Podcast. This is a space for honest faith, lived experiences, and shining a light in the places we've learned to hide. I'm not here to explain faith. I'm here to live it out loud. So take a breath and let's make room for what's real. Welcome back to Holy Chuckles Podcast. I'm really glad you're here. Today I'm talking about verse 3 in chapter 3 of 1 Samuel. The lamp of God had not yet gone out, and Samuel was lying down in the house of the Lord where the ark of God was. Then the Lord called Samuel. When I first read this, I was like, wait, then the Lord called Samuel what? And I wanted to move on to the next verse, but I knew this verse was so important. It was so important to understand what was happening to Samuel before he actually heard God's voice. Again, Samuel is just a child. He's between the age of 8 and 12, and he's living at the tabernacle under the supervision of Eli. And it says in the verse, the lamp of God had not yet gone out, and Samuel was lying down in the house of the Lord. It tells you where he's at. He's at the tabernacle. It's nighttime. It's quiet. It's stillness. And then it goes on to say where the ark of God was. So he's in proximity to the ark of God. I know I probably learned about the ark of God when I was a child in church, but I couldn't remember what it was. And the ark of God is this big, beautiful box, huge, had to be carried by like 4 big men. And inside it, there were 3 things. It contained the 10 commandments that Moses had chiseled out. It contained manna and Aaron's rod. The 10 commandments was to remind the people of Israel about the covenant, about the relationship they have with God. The manna was about daily provision, trust, and that God will always provide, not just for you, but for your future generations. And Aaron's rod that had budded meant life from something dead, a chosen calling. Not that Aaron was the only one chosen, but Aaron was specifically chosen for that leadership calling, because we're all chosen for a calling. It's if we choose to align with God so we can live out our calling. Samuel just went to bed. He just went to bed in the tabernacle where he always goes to bed. He didn't think, oh, I'm going to bed next to the ark of God. And Eli probably was like, Samuel, it's 8 p.m. It's time for you to go to bed. You know, just like all good parents do, put your kid in bed at an early bedtime so you can have a minute to yourself and have some quiet time. But the difference between where Samuel was and where someone else was is that he was in the presence of God, and not just because the ark of God was there, but because he was in the tabernacle, a place of God. So there was always talking about God, studying about God, experiences about God. Everything around him was about God. Samuel was growing spiritually without even understanding it or knowing it. He was just growing physically. And then, as a side note, he lived in the tabernacle. So how could he not grow spiritually? And he didn't even know that's what was happening. He was forming a relationship with God without even knowing it. And kids are sponges. I remember when my first nephew was born, man, he was my mom's pride and joy. That little kid could not do anything wrong. And I remember he was walking down the hallway of our house, and he walked by, had to have been probably the age of 3. He walked by, and he flipped me off. I was like, oh, wait till Mima sees that. You are going to be in so much trouble. And I didn't say a word. All of a sudden, about, I don't know, an hour later, I hear Matthew Lee Botkin. He got in trouble because he flipped her off. But all he was doing was following what he had seen. That's why most parents try to watch what they say around their kids, because they're just sponges. Samuel is living in the presence of God all the time. He's just soaking it all in, not even knowing what's happening. For me, I'm living in my quiet time, my stillness. My life right now is so simple. It's not grandiose. There are even sometimes I say to God, I'm bored. And God's like, I know, but you're still growing. So find something to do. Literally like what my mom used to say, go outside, entertain yourself. God's telling me, find something to do because you're still growing and nothing's going to happen right now because you're still learning. You're still forming within our relationship. Samuel was contained in an environment that was conducive to his growth. And for me, I'm in an environment that's contained, that's conducive to my growth. In the world of distractions, I have very little. It's been purposely done this way so I can continue to grow in my relationship with God and with myself. I can grow in my alignment. I was thinking yesterday about Samuel sleeping in proximity to the Ark of God. The Ark of God was important to the people of Israel because it represented a covenant, remembrance, a relationship, and God's presence. This ark traveled everywhere with the Israelites, even through the wilderness, until it stayed stationary at this tabernacle. And that symbolized God moved with the people. Everywhere they went, God was with them. God protected them. God provided for them. And that ark was so important to the people of Israel. They protected it. They loved that ark. It symbolized the presence of God. I think that all of us have some type of ark of God that connects us in our relationship with God, that fully aligns us in our relationship with God. For me, it's this podcast. I love this podcast, and I love it because I'm learning about God. I'm learning about myself. I'm in the presence of God. It doesn't matter if I'm studying to understand these verses, if I'm talking to God about these verses, I'm thinking about these verses. In my sleep, I'm dreaming about these verses. My life right now is about these verses. And I'm just like Samuel was in the tabernacle, a sponge. I am soaking up everything God is giving me to understand and to stay aligned with God. God, you want me to read this verse 22 times? I'm going to read it 22 times. And what I've realized on my 21st time, 22nd time, 19th time, 18th time, it means something different every single time. Today, before recording this episode, I already recorded an episode. And then I felt in my heart, it didn't go the way it needed to go because I read the verse again and I understood it differently. I connected with it differently. In the matter of 24 hours, my perspective of the verse changed. That's why it's so important to talk to God about these verses. It's so important to go back to the same verse over and over This week, I've done some releasing emotionally. I have understood some things about myself and my past and some of my relationships. And as I understood them, I was able to release those emotions that I had stuffed down. And releasing those emotions allowed me to come back to this verse, read it again, and have a different understanding, a different perspective. We become more mature in our understanding of what is happening in our growth, what is happening in our alignment, what is happening within our relationship with God. Because even though, like Samuel, I'm a child growing in my relationship with God, I'm still an adult with an adult mind that can understand what's happening within myself and within my relationship with God. Whereas Samuel was a child and he just accepted it. He just went with it. He just soaked it all in like a sponge. And I'm soaking it all in, but I have this nervous system that stayed activated for so many years. I have this brain that loves to over analyze everything. So I have to talk to myself a lot, and I have to talk to God a lot, and I have to say, okay, this is what I'm understanding. This is what's happening within me. This is what I'm releasing. This is how I'm growing. This is how my nervous system is healing. Brain, you can stop over analyzing because we're taking it day by day. I have to tell myself constantly, we're right here in this present moment. Do not leave this present moment. The future doesn't matter. The past is what it is. We're right here in this moment. My brain loves to play tricks on me and say, but what if? And I have to constantly say, no, we're not doing what ifs. We're staying right here. That was the benefit of Samuel growing as a child. It's a little harder growing as an adult. I said in my last episode, it gets frustrating. And boy, does it, because I have to continuously have these pep talks with myself. But when I have these pep talks with myself, I move past the area of growth that I was having a hard time with. All I can hear is God saying, that's my girl. That's my girl. I knew you could do it. I knew you could do it. God never gives us more than what we can handle. And I never understood when people would say that, because there were many times I was at my breaking point. But I was at my breaking point because I wouldn't surrender. I was at my breaking point because I tried to do it all myself. Now I understand. God never gives us more than we can handle because God carries the largest part of the load, but we have to let God carry it. And most of us, we want to carry the heavier side. We think we know what we're doing. We think we know better than God. But I've said it over and over. God can see more than we can see. God can handle more than we can handle. God knows more than we ever know. So why wouldn't we let God carry the heavier load? That has been a really hard lesson for me, and I am learning it daily. My podcast for me has become a place of encounter, reflection, truth, and growth. Before I moved into the place that I'm in now, I used to do my podcast in my living room. Now, the area that I record my podcast is in my bedroom, right next to my bed. When I thought about Samuel sleeping in proximity to the Ark of God, me sleeping in proximity to my podcast kind of feels the same. It keeps me closer to what's important to me. It's a constant reminder of my relationship with God and how I'm growing with God. I go to bed, I can see my podcast area. I'm thinking about God. I wake up, first thing I see is my podcast area. I'm thinking about God. I roll over I see my podcast area, I'm thinking about God. I come into my room, I see my podcast area. I'm thinking about God. And not just I'm thinking about God, I'm thinking about how could I grow better in my relationship with God. Samuel, it just happened naturally. For me, I'm doing it as an adult. And I think as adults, we need constant reminders because of all the distractions around us. We need constant reminders of what's important to us. That's what the ark of God was to the people of Israel. It was a reminder of the presence of God for them. Just like you have heirlooms, you have pictures, you have things that are passed down within your family because it reminds you of where you came from. The Israelites, this ark of God was that for them. It reminded them of who carried them through their struggles. My podcast area, I see it all the time, and it reminds me who is carrying me through my struggles. It reminds me what I'm doing. It reminds me how I'm growing. With all the distractions that we have in the world, we need reminders. And that's why that ark of God was so important to the Israelites. Samuel didn't need reminders. He was in it 24/7. He was listening to it. He was seeing it. He was a part of it. So his growth just came naturally. His relationship with God was a part of him. For me, God is just a part of who I am, not what I do or what I talk about. God moves with me every single place I go. And God is involved in every single aspect of my life. I don't have to show up at a particular place on a particular day so God and I can talk. God is always with me. We're always talking. I feel like I'm always growing within my relationship with God. I'm always growing in my alignment with God. Some days I feel my alignment and I feel it very, very strong. And some days I may be going through some things and I don't feel it as strong. But it doesn't mean that God's not there. It just means God's giving me some space to go through the things that I need to go through, to release the things that I need to release. God can't release all these emotions, feelings, and traumas that I've pushed down. What God does do is give me the space to understand them, to release them however I need to release them, whether it be crying, screaming, being silent. However I need to release them, God gives me that space and holds me through it while I release it. That's part of this growth within myself and with God, is letting that old stuff go, because you can't fully experience the new without releasing the old.